concerned about all this corruption being misgendered as conspiracies? Well, don't you worry. Sit back, relax, and join in the conversation as we talk with today's guest. Welcome to another LSB Film Productions podcast with your host, Kris Brooks.
Hello and welcome to the channel. It's me, Kris Brooks, for another LSB Film podcast. I hope everyone's doing well and enjoying the late but welcomed summer that we're now currently having. I'm not long back from holiday, so I'm ready to go now. I'm out of holiday mode and back into it. Today's guest, I'm joined with Sal. Now, Sal is somebody who has spent an awful amount of time practicing everything spiritual. He has his own spiritual guide. He will tell you a little bit about that in a minute. And yeah, he basically wants to come on and talk to us about the current state that the world is in, why it's in that state, and what we need to do to make sure that the transition that we are going to come across is as easy as possible. So, welcome to the show, Sal.
Thanks, Kris. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
And hello, everybody. I'm going to say things, and if you're of a scientific mind, you are going to struggle with some of the things I'm going to share. That can be helped. Some of you will hear me, some of you won't be able to just yet, but we are where we are. There's a change coming. There's a big change coming. Starting from January next year, there is a change in the vibrational energies that reach us from the universe. This can be very difficult for some people. I would suggest you look at the electric universe and Birkeland currents just from that very physical perspective, so that you may begin to realize that we truly are not isolated from each other. Neither human beings, not the physical universe that surrounds us. Everything is interconnected, not in a mumbo-jumbo sort of way, but purely in a very practical way, through vibrations. Everything is vibrationally connected, and so everything is affected by everything else. The smaller bodies are always affected by the bigger bodies. And for the last 10,000 years or so, ever since we had a cataclysm, around 13,000 or so, about 13,000 years ago, we had a cataclysm, as a result of which there was a lot of loss of life, but the earth itself got covered with ice, with only a narrow stretch in the center, which is where those who survived were able to go and live. We'll call the previous civilization the Atlanteans. And for about 1,500 years, they did really well. They managed to maintain their civilization, those who survived. And then their information got spread through different parts of the world, like in China, in India, in Egypt. Some people did go to places like South America, places like Peru. There are satellites that extended to different places. And then about 10,500 years ago, give or take, those the ice poles, which stretched all the way to Texas and over half of the way to from South Africa upwards towards the middle of Africa, a bit more, they began to melt. And as a result of that, the waters rose about 400 feet, 450 feet. A lot of people died again. And once more, they had to restart. But now what restarted was slightly different. There was a lot less people. but something had changed cosmically. We were now subjected to a different vibration, a vibration that limited us from the point of view of being who we were. We gradually descended into brutality. You know, the private civilization was very enlightened, but now we descended into brutality, sacrifice. We began to see gods and all manner of things out there as being responsible for what was going on, for who we were. We projected our fears and insecurities into the world, and we imagined all manner of things going on out there. As a result of that, there was gradually a group of people who were more narcissistic, more, psychopathic, who began to take control, who began to control the way things happen with people for themselves. Everything was about themselves.
Do you think this is a deliberate change? Do you think this had a nefarious hand that played a part in this?
No. No, it wasn't deliberate, but it just is the way it is, because all right. Right, so I am connected to an intelligence which is part of the soul dimension. And for the last 4 years or so, he's been telling me things about me, about how the world is, what humanity is like, where we're going, what's been going on, where we've come from. And part of that information is that creation is very simple. There is God, and there's nothing else but. However, God created creation. What we call creation, it's still part of God. It's not separate from whatever, forget about God as someone up there looking down on us. We as human beings, we have a consciousness. And that awareness, we have a sort of consciousness, not everyone is connected, but within that awareness, the whole organism, all our genetics, all our cells, all our organs, everything is flowing with us. We are composed of trillions of lives within our bodies. The cells within our bodies have no idea about the awareness that we are. The distance is so great, there's no connection. However, our awareness can connect downwards. We can actually connect all the way down to the muscles and possibly the cells to some extent. But the distance is great. So what God created, his creation, was a splitting of itself. And that split created the soul dimension. So now we've got God, that's everything, and within him, I'm going to call him it. Within him, there is the soul dimension. Now, so this is one split. Now, creation itself, in terms of the soul dimension, has got all manner of levels. And at very, very low levels, we've got the third dimension. And the third dimension is where we are. So we, humanity, we're part of this physical universe, which is three-dimensional. But everything within this third dimension is still made out of God. disconnected, disassociated, but it's still part of God. And so whilst God is one, everything else that comes from God is now fractured into greater and greater amounts. And so the soul dimension itself is fractured into all these dimensions. And the dimensions have got different levels of complexity. At a very low level, there is the 9th dimension, which is soul fragments. Like each of us as human beings, we contain a soul fragment that integrates with us, that is here because this third dimension is the playground. This is the playground for soul. Soul also needs to find itself, just like we need to find ourselves. So soul needs to find itself. It needs to find its way back to the maker of everything. Mm-hmm. So, but it's all different levels. So right down very low with us, there is a small part of the soul dimension which is lost. They are part of the 4th dimension of the soul dimension, and they're lost and disconnected from everything else. What connects the soul is the power of love. So the soul dimension is about the love energy of God. What motivates everything in this universe is God's love energy. Every atom within us, every atom in the universe, every body, it's all guided and motivated by soul. And that energy is will, is God's will. It's the will, it's the vibrational energy that makes the world as it is. This is not, we tend to see the universe, the world, ourselves from, we're always judging and criticizing and comparing. It has its place, but in us it's totally out of whack. And so it's hard for us to comprehend. Now, some people, the Gnostics, used to call them the archons. I call them the critters. But it's a very low vibrational energy from the soul dimension. And unfortunately, it has found in place in humanity because the cosmic window altered in a way that it limited our abilities. And it made us susceptible to ignorance, cruelty, individual damage at a psychological, emotional level. And we've suffered this for the last 10,000 years now. Let me go back 550 million years back. What we call humanity, we were some sort of apes. We were herbivores. And this, I know, it sounds so totally incredible. So this, what I call the true humans, some of them, a splinter of them, they came to this earth and they wanted something done, and they blended 1.5% of their genetic material, of their DNA, into us 550 million years ago. The result of that was that over many hundreds of millions of years, we began to alter to who we are today. Who we are today has got vestiges of who we used to be. But, we had a tail up to 100 million years ago, and fur. But nevertheless, we were already very clever, very intelligent, very bright. Brightness has, being bright, clever, intelligent has got nothing to do with technology. And we came from herbivores, and the one defining feature of herbivores is fear. Fear is how herbivores stay together and survive. The fear instinct keeps them part of the pack. Unlike most carnivores, because we are carnivores today, we still need to be part of the pack, because that fear is very deeply, it's part of our genetic material. It's very deeply built into us. And over the last 10,500 years, those who would control us have used our intrinsic fear to subjugate us. And so here we are, where, we only have to go back nearly 4 years to see the schism that happened in the world between those who are too fearful to question the narrative by those who control us. They've been controlling us for hundreds, thousands of years. All the wars, they're all down to them. Everything, all the ills of the world is down to these people. We are pretty much fodder for them. And the way that they control us is through our belief systems. They tell us what to believe, what the world is like. And through this fear, we don't question, because to question is to be the nail that sticks out and it gets hammered. It's the one that gets isolated and put into prison. And we're aware of this. We're all fearful. I'm driving down the road and I hear a siren behind me, the blue light's going, and my tummy goes, ugh. It's instinctive, it's beyond my logic. It's an instinctive fear. It's built into me and it's built into most of us. Now, some people manage to go beyond this. I'll admit I haven't, even though I can recognize it, but it's an instinctive fear. And I think there comes a moment when we go beyond it. And this is part of what is going to happen, I think. I think more and more people are going to wake up to the fact, gosh, I am afraid of these undefined people who are telling me, who are destroying the world around us, who take us from one cataclysm to another, from one war to another, from one event to another, from one whatever to another. And we are coming to a point, and we can see it happening already. We can see that people have begun to awaken to their belief systems.
People are seeing the patterns, the same patterns again and again and again.
Slowly, they repeat. Since the 1960s, there's been one event after another, which is like, oh. And then this is how conspiracy theories began to surface. And people, you're a conspiracy theorist. And it's a labeling. We see the labeling. Those who are indoctrinated and narrowed down in their perception and stuck in their fear to be part of the group, they don't want to be isolated from the group, they will allow themselves to not think for themselves by accepting someone else's version of what's going on. Rather than looking at the source, they will accept someone else's rendition of what the source was. And of course, you can see that it's been becoming increasingly more and more and more claustrophobic. In that, if you take the internet, for example, at first it was a free-for-all, and gradually they've been controlling. Now we're at the time now that if you want to research anything which is not controlled by AI, you have to put before 2023, just to get anything that might be relevant to your query. So gradually they are controlling all the sources of information. I mean, they always did, but now they're really controlling, and they're controlling how we speak. Now we've got all these hate laws, so now we are fearful of calling the pot black.
We're too busy policing ourselves to actually get any decent message out. Trying to talk in code, trying to avoid the censorships, using
that's what I'm doing with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I daren't say exactly how I see it, because that would that'd be me standing out. You know, there's a few brave souls out there who are brave enough to speak out, and they have a hell of a time, because all the powers that be everywhere are in absolute control, or so it would appear. So anyway, so that's the state of play. This is where we are right now, but something is changing. There is a new cosmic energy, a new cosmic vibration, you know, for the sake of argument, that will appear as from the 5th of January of next year. But I like to compare this to an early morning day in the middle of summer where it's bright, but the sun hasn't come through the horizon yet. And yet, you know the sun is coming. And this is where we are. Now we're starting, some of us are beginning to notice that the sun is coming, because the day is getting brighter. The sun hasn't arrived yet. It won't be here till next January. And so more and more people, as the months go by, are starting to wake up. But what are they waking up to? And that is the important bit. So, yeah, I am a channel for, I call him Charlie. I'm a channel for Charlie. And I know that this is true because Charlie and I have been working together. He's been helping me to heal. I was very sick at one point. He's been helping my family to heal. I've been working with people over the years, and he tells me how to help them. But the point of Charlie, the point of me working with people is me. This is my interest. This is what I want to do. This is what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to work as a healer, but before I wasn't very good. Now I'm better, but only because of him. And so it is because of this interaction with Charlie that I know that what he tells me is true. I am the first critic of anything that goes through my head. Okay, I don't trust what goes through my head because I am as indoctrinated as everyone else. And so we need to be able to laugh at what goes through our head and be critical of the thoughts in our heads. You know, most people accept what's in their head as though that's the truth. It isn't. It's what's been put into there, either by osmosis or through education. So we're all damaged. Well, absolutely. Yeah, we can't escape it. And even when we sort ourselves out, some of that damage is so deeply intertwined with our genetics through our structure, the way we've grown. It's like a tree. If a tree doesn't have the right amount of nutrients, water, sunlight, it's going to grow up stunted. It's going to grow up distorted. And even though it may then grow nicely because all the environment has changed, the damage is now built into its structure. And so the same thing is true of us. So like my intrinsic fears, I may never be able to get rid of them. I'm prone to anxiety. When the full moon's there, I have moments when I can get anxious. It depends on the month, it depends on what's going on with the plants, etc. But I can get anxious for a day or two. I can lose the plot. I'm aware of that, but there's that moment that catches me, and it's beyond my ability to alter. There'll be times when I will have some slight accidents. I will hurt myself accidentally. I'm closing the door of the van and maybe I catch it on the side, or, there are accidents which you would describe as accidents, but nevertheless, they only happen because I am not 100% focused in my world. Yeah. So it doesn't matter how far we go in ourselves to find out who we truly are and to be really connected. We're still at the mercy of the world to a greater or lesser degree. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is we're all humans and there is no such thing as perfection. However, the majority of people at this moment in time, although they're beginning to wake up very gradually to, hold on a minute, there's a heck of a lot of lies. The way I'm in the world is not good. I'm too much at the mercy of my thoughts, of my emotions, of my tempers, whatever it is. Yeah. And so I want to change. I want to do something about it. And people go off in all manner of weird ways to do with spirituality, like going off to India or whatever, or the opening up the chakras. You were telling me about the pineal, something or other. There's all manner of things that people invent and do, which may have elements of truth, but they're confused. The truth of mankind, the truth of being a human being, is that we have 3 separate brains, all centers. We've got a physical center, we've got an emotional center, and we have a mental center. And the 3 of them need to be working together, and they don't. For the majority of people, they're lucky to have 2 centers working at the same time at any given moment of their lives. When 2 centers are working, we have access to knowledge. But knowledge doesn't stay. Knowledge is very ephemeral. What we need is understanding. And understanding comes when all 3 centers are working at the same time. So clearly, we all have moments when all 3 centers are working at the same time. And then we have, and now suddenly we understand something. Because all that information has been transformed inside us. And we have understanding. We've grown. So the journey for a human being is to move from the 2 centers to 3 centers. Some people are more connected with their mind and their emotions. Some people are more connected with their mind and their physical body. So we all have preference and everything fluctuates here and there. So what stops us from having all 3 centers operating? In a nutshell, it is the rigidity of our belief systems and the rigidity of our emotional way of being. We all are meant to experience the whole spectrum of emotions. This is the way we're meant to be, but we don't. We favor some emotions and we suppress others. We suppress them because we've been traumatized in our lives. We've been traumatized in our childhoods, and then the trauma sometimes keeps going on till our 20s and 30s. It depends. We're all different. We're all at different stages. So
and also, the challenge, in the eyes of like the NHS and things, you would say like depression and stuff is almost demonized So they don't treat why you're depressed, if you are in fact even depressed, because you can just be sad. They will just be more than happy to just throw a pill at you. Instead of getting to the root cause and say, this will mask it, this will mask it. So you'll never actually really get into the baseline of why people are depressed. They're just trying to put a Band-Aid over it. Band-Aid? When did I become American? A plaster.
Absolutely. But this is all part of the problem of where we are right now, because we are so damaged in ourselves, we're so disconnected within ourselves, we don't know what's good for us. And those who would control us, they are the ones who have invented the pharmaceutical industry. They're the ones who are poisoning our world. They're poisoning our world with chemicals, they're poisoning the seas, they're poisoning our bodies, they're poisoning our collective environment. And it's like we're like punch drunk. We're going through the world punch drunk. We don't get a moment to pause and really know who we are. And
because we're kept so
Hollywood,
busy.
Well, we're kept absolutely busy, non-stop. And it's all part of the sequence, because the way they keep us busy is also the way they keep indoctrinating us. They keep telling us what reality is. Hollywood is reality. They're telling us what reality is. And we don't question it. We never question it. Well, I won't go there for now. The point is that we need to change. How do we change? Well, one of the ways we need to change is we need to stop taking all these medications where the root cause is emotional, as you said, depression, etc. We need to stop taking medication when the root cause is because we're eating the wrong foods. We are poisoning ourselves by eating all these chemicalized foods that come from the supermarkets. Everything that comes from a factory is not real. It's not real food. They manage to extend the sell by date because they add chemicals to it of one form or another. It makes life easy for sure. Things like alcohol. We've been drinking alcohol the last 10,000 years. It's one of the quickest way to disassociate us from our emotions, from who we are. I understand why we do it, because it's a way of managing our world. When we're emotionally stressed, and everybody's emotionally stressed, because that's the way the world is geared up. They want you to be like that. They want you to reel from one scene to another, which we do. Oh, listen, if you want to know what not to do, look at Hollywood and their films. You'll always see them taking drugs, taking tablets, they're always popping tablets, they're always drinking wine, they're always smoking cigarettes, they're always doing cocaine. It's been pushed.
The devil's playground.
Absolutely. And so to really find our way, we need to reduce the amount of addictions that we have. Coffee, for example. Everybody's drinking coffee, right? Oh, coffee. For God's sake, coffee is a poison produced by a plant to kill the insects that come to it. It's a disruptor. It disrupts your adrenals. But I understand, it perks me up. Yeah, of course it does. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're taking adrenaline energy, which should last you 24 hours, and you're consuming it in 20 minutes. So of course you feel great. But that's the way cocaine works. That's the way heroin works. They all have this way they all work in a similar way. They take something that, except they become addictive. So we need to reduce our addictions. One of the worst addictions is sugar. Sugar is an addiction. It's a complete and utter addiction. It's more addictive than heroin. It really is addictive. People don't realize it because it's something we do in a group. It's part of the group dynamic.
It's almost something you can't really get away from because, like you say, you go to the supermarkets, you buy a loaf of bread. Why is there sugar in it? You buy something else. You think, why is there sugar in that? It's very difficult to break free from sugar completely. Now, I understand with fruits and stuff, it's not quite as bad, but it's still bad. But the issue that I find, and I'm sure a lot of people who haven't got healthy bank balances, is for some reason all the good stuff is so expensive and it doesn't last very long. So if you're a family of, I don't know, say you've got 3 kids and you're on a budget, are you going to buy the good stuff that's got a couple of days shelf life before it either gets eaten or thrown in the bin, or do you buy the crap that's going to last you a week or two? Do you know, that's where that's my issue with all this. If food is good, that food should be the cheapest, because along the lines it gives you the best. If you're eating fruit and veg or whatever you deem to be healthy, you're not going to be in hospital as much, are you? But if you keep eating burgers, chocolate, crisps, then there's going to be more GP visits.
Well, there is that. If you want to know what's bad for you, or rather, let me put it the other way around. If you want to know what's good for you, look at the things they're trying to take away from your diet. Okay? The powers that be. What are they trying to take away from the diet?
Natural
if you
fat.
Want to know natural fat and meat. If you want to know what's bad for you, look at the things they're promoting. Okay? I mean, in a nutshell, that's it. They're not promoting anything that's going to be good for you. They want to take away all our meats. They think they're bad for the environment. I mean, all this climate lark and whatnot. They're trying to change all of that. But anyway, I'm digressing. So, human being, 3 centers, emotions, mind. We need to deal with the traumas of our lives. But how can we do that? It's the reason why we don't deal with our traumas is because they're painful. So we've suppressed them a long time ago. And so we've got to a point where we lack emotion, the capacity to experience emotional intensity. And this whole woke culture is another way of what they're telling you. They're telling you, okay, they're telling you, we don't want you. We don't want you to experience emotional intensity. If I say something that you experience hurt by, I haven't done it to you. That's your experience. If I called you names because of your behavior, whatever, and now you're all hurt, that's your experience as a result of your trauma. Because if you have 10 people, not everyone's going to react the same to those words. Yeah? So what they're doing is, what they've been doing for quite a while now is, they want to limit your capacity for intense emotional experience. And now they've turned them into hate laws. Yeah? And that's exactly what it is. It's a means of denying us the ability, the capacity to experience intense emotional experiences. Now, I'm not saying we need to go out there, calling people this, that, or the other. That's not the point. The point is that it is inevitable, because we're all damaged, that we're going to have conflicts with other people, verbal, emotional, and that's going to be painful. And there is no right or wrong. It simply is that we need to be able to experience that. We need to be able to experience strong emotions. And I don't, even the emotion of hate. Hate is nothing wrong with hate.
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Isn't that what we were taught growing up?
Yes. Those were the days. But yeah, essentially, we need to be able to experience what is uncomfortable within us. It doesn't mean to say we have to act.
Yeah, essentially, they're just trying to make you weak, so you can't cope with anything. So, you don't get weak warriors. So if you're weak, you're not going to be a warrior. You're not going to stand
Look what happened.
The tyranny.
Look what happened in America with the army. Okay, all these transgender issues. Look what's happened with the Olympics, for God's sake. They're corrupting our world. I'm not saying that there isn't room for people who have a different way of being in the world. They deserve to have their slot. I have no problem with them in that sense. But I do have a problem with it being shoved in my face with every Netflix that I watch.
An advert.
Every time, continuously. Okay? I won't go into it, but they're shoving everything in our faces. It's blatant indoctrination. Blatant. Be that as it may. This is where we are at the moment. But where I'm coming from is we need to begin to integrate ourselves. We need to become whole in ourselves. And why do that? Because there's something else I haven't mentioned, which is our hearts. You see, when we operate from two brains only, we're not only disconnected within ourselves, i.e., we're not present. We're not really connected with reality. We don't see the world as it is. We are interpreting the world through the belief systems, which are verbalizing our perception all the time. We don't see the world as it is. So all the time we are jumping the gun rather than experiencing the world. And the heart doesn't get a look in. Now, I began by speaking about soul, and there's a soul fragment within each of us. And the connection between our personalities and our soul is via the heart. So our egos is a machine, a biological machine that operates within this third dimension. We have erroneously given our biological ego the perception that it has will and that it does what the hell it likes. It does not. We are machines. We are at the mercy of our biology, genetic DNA. We are at the mercy of the indoctrinated beliefs that are put into our heads, plus the ones that we ourselves give ourselves as a result of traumatic experiences. So we learn how to be in the world as a result of how we are treated by the world. If the world treats me badly, then that's going to make me very cagey in so many different ways. So anyway, the end result of all of that is that we disconnect from our hearts. And to be a true human being means to have a heart that can open and close, depending on the situation, but it's flexible. So flexibility is the name of the game, whether we're talking physical, emotional, mental, or even to do with our hearts. We need to be flexible. We need to know when to open, when to close. because, we do live in a world of eat and be eaten. The world is as the world is. And so we need to know when to close and when to open. We don't want to be shut all the time. We don't want to be open all the time. Both extremes are deadly. So it's really important. Something funny went on with my computer over there. Hopefully we won't lose connection. So the thing is, how do we change? So it's going to become easier from next year, because as people become more and more awake, they will begin to question more and more. We need to question the food. We need to question the drugs. We need to question our addictions.
The education
we need to question
system.
Our beliefs. Absolutely. Absolutely. Your kids still in school, or are you homeschooling them?
Well, they're off on the school holidays, but they are still in school. My little girl goes to high school in September.
So it's tricky, isn't it?
It is, knowing what I know. I have had the conversation saying, would you like to, I'd be happy to have you at home to homeschool, given the fact that I'm at home anyway. But I think it's the social aspect. They say,
Sure.
oh no, because I'd miss my mates. I'd never see my friends. And I suppose in many respects that is true. But I have to say, and I won't give the school's name out, but they seem very focused on creative stuff. So they have lots of music programs, lots of drama, art, which is quite good, because I was under the impression that a lot of these schools, unless it's academic, doing your maths and your, that they were bypassing a lot of all the things, all the creative side. For this school does have its own very good choir. They do seem to be very much focused on creativity, and they get the same tutor throughout the entire school. So the teacher or the tutor will get to know.
Age group?
Well, from 11 till 16, I guess. But they'll have the same teacher throughout. They'll still have other teachers giving different lessons, but the form teacher will remain the same throughout their journey at high school, which I think is quite good, because they get to know the student. So they get to know, if there's a kid that's suffering for whatever reason, they'll be able to pick up on that, because they know who they are. For when you're changing teachers every year, I suppose it's a lot harder to manage. So I'm quite optimistic there. That's quite good. The only thing I don't like about the school, and we've said no to it anyway, is where if they want to have their own, if they want to go to school and have a school dinner, it's all used via the thumbprint or the biometrics. I said, no, you're taking a packed lunch. Taking a packed lunch. Why do they? Do you know what I mean? To me, that's like that's an encroachment of.
They're just preparing them. They're preparing them for the future.
Well,
everybody's catalogued.
Yeah, well, exactly. And so I don't like the idea of that, so that's not happening. But apart from that, everything else seems rather good. So I'm not quite so apprehensive for her in September.
So it's a compromise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a compromise between you and the system.
Now, my little boy would love to be homeschooled, and I love him to bits. I just don't know whether I would do him justice.
You need to have more kids. Well, you need to have a group class, right? You need four of them.
Yeah. Yeah, but apparently they only need to learn about 2 hours a week to get to the level where they're at school.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me. We learn by experience, not by learning some sort of rivers in Afghanistan. We learn by doing things. We need to be practical with our hands, creative, imagination, what we come into this world with, right? We need to engage. I mean, you look at animals, they're always engaging with the world as they're growing up. It's full of physical activity. Anyway, so I was saying about how for these changes which need to come, which need to happen, which will happen, we need to literally begin to think of our bodies as our temple. We need to start looking after ourselves. That means we need to start liking ourselves. You know, I've just written an article on love and self-dislike. It's on my website. But it's really, most people dislike themselves. But the dislike is the mind in conflict with the emotions. Yeah. So we internalize the conflicts. And step number one for change, we need to begin to question, why do I dislike my nose? Why do I dislike this emotion about me? Why do I dislike this? Why do I feel embarrassed when I go with certain people and I'm wearing the wrong dress, the wrong gear for the group, right? Now I experience the shame. So like, we need to begin to learn to be ourselves. You know, the British, the English, I think, they have this thing, being eccentric, being an eccentric. You know, it's sort of like, oh, yeah, it's just eccentric. When I was in my 20s, I was going to go to this, in fact, I did go to a 1-year sabbatical where I went to learn all manner of things. But before going there, they were going to take me to a farm where I would spend a few months because I've been raised in London and I didn't have a clue about anything. Anyway, so I knocked on the house of these very rich people. And this woman comes to the door with one shoe on, totally unfazed, unbothered, unkempt. And I thought that was very refreshing. You know, like, you are as you are who you are, whatever it
eccentric.
Be eccentric, yeah. Be yourself, whatever that means. Don't do like everybody else does. Be yourself. You know, don't follow the fashions. The fashions is another way of maintaining the homogeneity of the group all moving as one. Yeah, one more of the sheep. Be yourself, be different.
Stand out.
Strike out, stand out. Yeah, stand out for yourself in your way. But don't stand out, you know, like the hippies, the hippie era. They wanted to stand out from the group. So what did they do? They all followed a different fashion. Nothing changed.
No.
You thought, oh, he's a hippie now. They thought they were being, freeing themselves, but they weren't freeing themselves. They simply changed one set of garments for another. I'm not saying that. I'm saying be yourself, whatever that means. Not because of some indoctrination from outside. Anyway, I wanted to share also that for 2025, I will be starting groups, small groups. Charlie wants me to work with more people than just one-to-one, because we need to change the world, and we need to change the world to connect with our hearts, because you cannot fight fire with fire. You cannot fight violence with violence. You can, but the end result is you become what you hate. So that is not the way to change. By us becoming what these psychopaths are like, that's not the way forward. The way forward is by being ourselves, connecting with our hearts, and being able to say no. As simple as that is. I have this image of that film, I think it was called V. And towards the end, you got millions of people with their masks on, just saying no, just standing there, no. And the minions, the lackeys, the police, they were the army, they were supposed to sort of mow them down. because of the sheer numbers, they came to their senses. And then they also said no.
What was it, V for Vendetta?
V for Vendetta.
V for Vendetta, I think.
Well done. Yeah. But it was that image, such a powerful image when everyone stands together in solidarity saying no. That's how you change the world.
Absolutely.
That's the only way to change the world. Anyway, so one step at a time, from my perspective, from where I come from, my job is to help those who are ready. And I acknowledge there's not many ready to begin with, but we need to change ourselves. That means we need to connect with our pain. We need to connect with that emotional intensity which we've been denying. And so I will be running groups. Each group will last 6 months, and I will be running 2 groups for 6 months. So I'm dealing with very small numbers, and we will work really intensely. And the purpose of the group is that these 6 or 7 individuals will share their pain. They will experience, they will expose their underbelly. And as you all know, if you think of your lives, when we see someone who's damaged, our heart opens up. We're less likely to judge. We want to help.
More empathy.
We have empathy, thank you. Yeah. And so the purpose of the group is to get a group of people that come together. They share the hurts, the deep hurts within the group. People know that they've been hurt. They release whatever's going on for them slowly, but also they bond with each other because they will only do 6 weekends with me. And then they have to go into the world together, do their thing. Everybody goes back to, but they maintain that bond that they've developed.
So is this in person?
Yes,
so not a Zoom or anything like that?
It cannot work. Okay. Other people have asked me that before. It cannot work like that because I mentioned before about vibration of the universe. But we ourselves, our emotions generate vibrations. And our feelings generate a vibration. The vibration of our emotions doesn't go very far, 10, 20 feet, depending on your ability, your capacity to experience intense emotions. And so if you're in a room with me and I'm experiencing intense emotions, you'll pick it up. You will know this. And when you've got a group of 6, 7 people, and someone is really experiencing their grief, their sadness, their anger, their hate, whatever the emotion it is, you will pick it up and you will resonate with what the other person is, the other human being is experiencing. And so that changes us. So simply by being part of that group, experiencing what the other person, the other human being is experiencing, I keep saying person has got nothing to do with a human being. Person is the mask that every human being has in this world. That we've been indoctrinated with the mask of being a person. We're not persons.
Corporate entity.
Yes. So anyway, so we partake of that experience, and that is how we bond. That is how we generate bonds between people. And that has got to last them because we learn through experience. And so the people that come and work with me, they will then go into the world and they will continue learning from the world. They'll continue experiencing. And then 2 years later, they'll come back for another 3 weekends. And then we will hopefully get them to a place that's high enough in themselves to be really solid. But meanwhile, that bubble, that little group, will keep themselves together, helping each other through thick and thin. So that is my intention. That is what I will be doing. And there is information on my website. If you get to my website, salmarch.co.uk, you can easily find it is right there, plastered on one side, about the coming workshops next year. And within a couple of years, I hope to have got this down to a point where I can work with much bigger numbers. But to begin with, and there's not that many people out there who are ready, to be honest, even today. But some people will be ready enough for me to begin to work with. So why are we doing this? I said that everything's vibration, everything's frequency, and the heart, whereas my emotions may extend to about 20 feet around me, the feelings from my heart can extend around the world. There is no limit, because what comes from our heart comes from our spirit. It comes from the soul within us, and that has no limit. And so the more of us who begin to learn how to open up our hearts in a flexible way, but nevertheless, we start to open up our hearts and deliberately experience our feelings of acceptance, empathy, love, joy, the more we will infect others. And I began by saying how we are part of a group dynamic. Yeah, our strongest urge is to be part of the group. Well, just like a school of fish or a shoal of fish, they all sort of move in unison. How, what makes one and the one at the opposite end, why do they all move at the same time together? I don't know. But so human beings, we have the power to affect others, to affect the group, so that we begin to move in unison. And the more of us who come from our heart, the more we will infect others, if you like, and make it easier for others to also to begin to open up their hearts, to begin to experience their pains, to begin to change who they are.
Definitely. Okay. No, that's what we need. That's what we need.
Yeah. So,
well, I wish you all the very best with that.
Thank you very much.
I'll put your links in the video description as always, so people can check you out, or your website, your YouTube channel.
Thanks.
Feel free to share this when it's aired. Well, thank you very much, Sal. I've enjoyed it.
Well, thank you for allowing me to. An hour and a half. I had to fleetingly go through so much information, but there is loads that we could speak about.
Well, I'd be happy to have you back on. I'd be happy to have you back on once you've got once you're ready for your workshops, and we can talk about that a little bit more and promote that for you. That's not a problem.
I'm ready for my workshops now, by the way. I'm taking, people who are interested. Now is the time to, if what I said resonates with you, then now is the time to begin to think about this and look at my website, see, because I do make demands. You've got to be free of drugs for at least 6 years, no antidepressants for at least 6 years. I can only take those who are really ready at the moment. Later on, it may change, but for now, I need those who are really willing to do the work. And it's going to be intense. And it will be life-changing. But only because you've reached a certain level and you're ready to commit to that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, that makes sense. So there you go, people. If you are looking for change to better yourself and to gear yourself for what's coming around the corner, then go in the video description, click on the website and find out some more information. I hope you've all enjoyed this podcast, and I look forward to meeting you all again.
Hold on. I'll tell you who this would be good for.
Go on then.
There's a lot of people who they seem to rise to the top of groups, alternative groups, and they seem to be at the forefront of this new wave that's coming. People like that should come to work with me. because there's an awful lot of confusion. There's an awful lot of ego. And there's a lot of, we're still very mixed up internally. And we actually do need to come from the right place. And anyway, there you go.
There you go. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Look after yourselves, and I'll speak to you all again soon. Bye for now.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.